Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. We learned about a couple of returners here, or I would say a lot of returners here for Arizona State football. We're going to get into that in just a second. Obviously, men's basketball has a big game coming up against Kansas. That is tomorrow evening. So first, we're going to get into the football returners, and then we'll get into some of the basketball X's and O's as we watched a pretty good game played. Maybe one of the most complete games of the season by the men's basketball team against Colorado the other day. So, Sam Leavitt's coming back. That's something that we kind of knew, but it's nice to see it on paper that it's going to happen, that he will be back next season. Most likely backed up by Jeff Sims at quarterback, Raleek Brown, Kyson Brown, Jason Brown, and Alton McCaskill as well, all back. Jordan Tyson was the big one. He didn't publicly say anything up to yesterday until it was finally official that he is coming back.
So when we were talking about the coaching extension, a phrase I used quite a bit was never not happening. And Jordan Tyson, same deal. He was always going to come back. You know, some people were getting worried about why hasn't he announced yet when everyone else has. You know, like when the surgery happened, Kenny talked about Jordan's going to be healthy for next year here. Sam has always talked about excited to tackle next year with Jordan. You know, this was always going to happen, but, you know, like you mentioned earlier, to see it actually said, you know, I'm running it back, it feels good to see. And, I mean, basically the entire starting lineup, as far as people who still have eligibility, are going to be back. And so that's huge.
Yeah, and this is just the first window of the portal, right, guys? We could see guys possibly change their minds, but at this point, guys are saying that they are coming back, Jesse.
Yeah, a lot of guys coming back on both sides of the ball, Jordan Tyson being the big one. The defensive line is pretty stacked as well. You just got to shout out the Sun Angel Collective because, as you know, Jordan Tyson is one of the players that tagged the Sun Angel Collective in
almost every single one of them tagged Sun Angel Collective.
So they're getting their NIL money and they're deciding to come back, and I think that's the reality that we live in. And I do think that some of it has to play, that they like Kenny Dillingham and they like being here. But I do think that there had to be good NIL for them to be back. So shout out the Sun Angel NIL Collective for bringing them back. I just hope that this receiver position, other than Jordan Tyson, can develop. It's kind of thin behind him. And then obviously the running back position, I think will be strong again next year, especially with Kanye Udo coming in, and then all of the returning Browns / McCaskill.
In terms of the defensive line, you brought that up, Jesse, as well. Clayton Smith, Prince Dorba, CJ Fight, Kongaika, Elijah O'Neal, Watley, Swanson, all those guys played a big role this season, Damon, and it's good to see those guys back. Would like to see them add maybe some more depth at the interior defensive line, but in terms of the edge rushers, I'm happy to see both Clayton Smith and Prince Dorba as well as Elijah O'Neal back on this team.
Yeah, it's huge to see so many guys come back. So for the defensive line, ASU is able to bring back its entire 2-deep rotation except for Jeff Clark, who is getting up there in age. As far as college players go.
He's 24.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's 24, but
obviously another one of the big ones there along the defensive line, Jacob Rich Kongaika, I think is huge just because of what he brings from an intangible standpoint. You know, we've talked about him. Kenny has called him a multiplier. You know, players have joked about that title too. And, you know, the way that he just brings energy to practice, I don't think ASU practices the way it does this year without Kongaika. And so for him to be coming back and for his mother to share such a kind statement on Twitter about, you know, Kenny Dillingham is the real deal. Everything that we've experienced since getting here has been exactly what we've expected. And, you know, I think it's going to be huge to have that much back.
Big vibes guy, Jacob Rich Kongaika. He's always dancing at practice. he was the guy that he obviously transferred from U of A, and then he went back down to U of A.
Forked the A.
He forked the A, so a little bit of a. They didn't really scuffle, but the guy tried to rip it away from him.
It looked like it was one of his friends, though. It didn't look that like a scuffle.
Yeah,
a little mix up,
a little fun,
little mix up,
little fun stuff.
Wasn't Ohio State and Michigan where there was pepper spray out there, but yeah, I'm excited for those guys to be back there. The defensive line. I hope they can be a little bit more effective this year at getting after the quarterback, or in 2025. I think that is something that they need to do. And Damon, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Are they still they're still able to go get guys? The portal is just closed, correct?
For now.
Yeah, you cannot enter the portal anymore until the spring window opens. That will run from April 16 to 25. So after spring ball gets
Whoever
done,
is in the portal right now can be.
you can still
Yes.
sign people from the portal, but you cannot enter the portal.
Because I would just like to see more wide receivers.
We had heard that they were planning to take 3 transfer receivers. So far, they only have 2. We bring up the transfer receivers. I was watching a lot of the Jalen Moss tape last night. He looks really good. He looks capable of being the wide receiver 2 if need be. And so, you would love to have had another one of the big fish like a Deuce Robinson or Zachariah Branch that they were in on. Obviously, Branch brothers go to Georgia recently, so you don't get either of those big fish, but perhaps there are other receivers to be had still.
All right, now getting into the basketball side of things, the men's team won 81-61 over Colorado. Colorado's a good basketball team, and they had I think similar record, if not the same record as ASU going into this game. ASU now 10-3, and they get their first ever Big 12 victory. And it's against obviously a former Pac-12
it's
school.
funny that the first Big 12 win kind of comes against not really a Big 12 school.
Yeah.
Well,
kind of sort of.
technically, I consider Colorado a traditional Big 12 team because they were in the Big 12 long before they were in the Pac-12. So, kind of a Pac-12 win over a Big 12 legacy school.
A
Very,
geriatric
very odd.
Big 12
Anyway.
school.
Very odd.
BJ Freeman with 19 points, obviously got ejected at the end of the game. He apologized profusely, I would say. He came up to the podium at the end of the game and said he didn't mean to do it, and then he tweeted about it after the game as well. But he had a great game, 19 points, 8 for 12 shooting, and I thought that it was possibly his best game as a Sun Devil so far this season, Damon.
I thought it was not possibly. I thought it was 100% his best game as a Sun Devil. It was nice to see him operating well with the ball in his hands, kind of looking more decisive than he's looked at times this season so far. Obviously, we know Bobby Hurley has been on his case for a lot of different things. Just like he mentioned in this, he talked about that flagrant 2 where he allegedly punched a Colorado player in the nuts. He talked about it as, I was just trying to fight through the screen
nether
really
regions.
hard so
Regions.
so that Hurley isn't on my case about not fighting through screens. And so it's funny that
So
turns
this is
into a
Bobby's
flagrant 2. Yeah, he kind of blamed it on Bobby in a sense.
Hilarious. No, but it was needed, Jesse, right? Not the punch in the net other reasons, but the game from BJ Freeman, the 19 points, it was needed because they didn't have Josan Sandin in this basketball game.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit worried about that moving forward. I hope he can play tomorrow against Kansas. Damon message that Bobby said he is a game time decision for tomorrow's game. So they really need him against number 11 Kansas now. It was number 7 Kansas, but they lost to West Virginia at home, which is an I got a lot of takes on that.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing they did, though. They also beat UCF on the road by 51.
And UCF's a solid team.
UCF's a solid team.
Mikey Williams got in.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
good for him.
First NCAA minutes.
Nice.
Yeah.
But anyway,
He really helped his team there.
Anyway, my thoughts on the Colorado game is, yes, BJ Freeman played really well, stepped up. The team shot the ball really well, and I'm kind of seeing a trend with this team, and I don't know if I like it. They're a bit of a live by the 3, die by the 3 team. When they're not shooting the ball well, it's kind of ugly.
It's a make or miss league.
When they're shooting the ball well,
Absolutely.
it's really good. And again, I was impressed with Jaden Quainton. He just continues to get better. And, he's close to averaging a double-double now. He's up to 9.2 points per game, I think, and 8.4 rebounds. So
it's the blocks, it's the defense that is really impressing me as well.
That too. So
at such a young age, for a guy to be so stout on the defensive end, especially coming into a game where he's going to have to play against 55-year-old Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be a tough test for him coming into a game. Hostile environment against a player who has been there before in terms of tournament runs, really good teams. It's going to be a big test for Jaden Quainton on Wednesday.
It is, but again, he just has a great feel for defense. Like he great anticipation for when players are driving, and his ability to block shots. It just comes off of that, and again, he's just been really impressive to me. And I think the thing though that I'm most impressed about this win is that they didn't have Josan and they won by 20. Because Josan has carried them in multiple games this year, and it was nice to see them deal with that adversity. Now, I would like to see Bobby go a little bit more into his bench when players are out.
It's tough.
But I'd like to see a Bryson Long maybe get in.
I mean, they went 8 deep with Bobby Hurley Jr.
Okay.
No Brandon Gardner for this game either. Chris Cartman was reporting that Brandon had an issue where he had a team rules violation and was suspended for, I guess, it sounds like indefinitely, but there is a path where he can return.
Games, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, we mentioned Quainton's today. He was talking to us about, just the patience that it takes to be such a good shot blocker without fouling so much. And I think that to your point, Jeremy, about the maturity at such a young age, he's still going to be 17 throughout the whole school year. Like, we keep bringing that up because it keeps rearing its head into how incredible of a player he's already been. And, he also talked about the midseason acquisition in Trevor Best, who Bobby Hurley kind of called a change of pace guard who can slash well and kind of offer a few different things that the current guards don't. We'll see how often, if at all, he can get into game action this season, but to have him around the building and start developing and start picking up that system and maybe even reinforcing the idea that Quainton sticks around here for his sophomore year, I think that would be huge.
I am just overall just impressed with Jaden Quainton because, you forget that he's 17 years old. I graduated high school a year after my 19th birthday. He's in college, he just turned 19, basically. I mean, over the summer he just turned 17. Over the summer he just turned 17, and he's obviously big physically and doesn't look like a 17-year-old. But to deal with not being with near your family, really, college classes at 17 years old, that's got to be tough. And he's managing that as well as playing, in the Big 12, which is all across the country now. And he's doing a really good job of playing this season and has just steadily gotten better. And he's gone from 5 points per game to 9 points per game and kind of a quick amount of time too.
Yeah, and I've been
hitting
impressed.
Some nice jumpers lately too.
Yeah, he can shoot a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's something that I've noticed. I mean, the three could get better, but as far as the jumpers go, he's knocking them down more.
Picking up some game confidence, which is important.
What I've noticed is Adam Miller is kind of the glue. He does whatever the team needs in that certain moment. If the team needs him to swing the rock, he'll swing the rock. If the team needs him to make a couple of clutch shots, he'll do that. I've been really impressed with him, especially on the defensive end, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does in this game. This is a big game, obviously, going into a hostile environment. ASU has historically had some success at the Fog, but
Bobby Hurley 2-0 against Kansas. They were top 2 teams in both cases.
Yes, so we'll see what ASU can do against this Kansas team. Jesse, we were kind of alluding to it earlier. We watched the tape of their loss last week to West Virginia. Obviously, Damon, you brought up that they won by over 40 points against over 50 points against UCF. When I was watching the tape of the West Virginia game, I noticed a lot of pick and roll defense problems for Kansas. That's not something ASU necessarily does well in terms of the dribble handoff. Yes, they do that very well. They get downhill a lot, but they don't play a lot of pick and roll style offense anymore. I would like to see it more, but it's a lot of shooting. Listen, if they can shoot the heck out of the ball, shoot the lights out, they're going to win this ball game, I think. But it's going to be tough against a Kansas team that has the length and size to, contest those jumpers, Damon.
Yeah, it's a really, really good Kansas team. Exactly what you'd expect. Some veteran guard play, some really good wings, and then, like we've mentioned, Hunter Dickinson and, a potential lottery pick understudy behind Hunter and Flory Badunga. And, that's going to be a really big challenge for Quaintance and Bashir Jihad and Sean Phillips in the front court, but also just for the guards to, get that penetration into the paint like we talked about. That's been so key for this offense. The amount of success it has when there are paint touches versus when there aren't, I think is just night and day. And so if you're able to get some of that against the Kansas front court, I think that's how you kind of open the game up. And I think there's a good chance we do see some pick and roll stuff with potentially Josan and Jaden if Josan's healthy, where, if the game is starting to slow down and, that's one of the only things that you can bank on, I think that it is something you can bank on.
ASU has to go, and this is a kind of an archaic belief these days in basketball, but what I noticed in that West Virginia had so much success was of just points in the paint. ASU's got to have a points in the paint advantage in this game. If they can move the ball well and find guys open in the paint, that's going to be huge. Like I noticed that Kansas just kind of left guys open at times in the paint. I'm sure that had to do with West Virginia's offense, but they have to, this can be a game where Sean Phillips Jr., Jaden Quainton can kind of eat down there because, again, there was times that I saw West Virginia just wide open. And so if they can move the ball around and make sure that those guys are open down low, then I think that they can have some success. And then defensively, they've got to swarm to the ball. I noticed when West Virginia swarmed to the ball, Kansas got really kind of out of whack. And this is a beatable Kansas team. They're a good team, but I think they might have been slightly overhyped entering the season, and ASU can beat them. And Bobby Hurley's had Bill Self's number in the past, and I don't think they will. I don't think they will beat them, but they can.
Yeah, and listen, this Kansas team, they can shoot the rock. They're really good at shooting the basketball. ASU held Colorado to just 3 total three-pointers made on Saturday afternoon. If ASU can do that again against this Kansas team, they have a good chance at winning this ball game. You got to close out. You got to run to the ball. You got to rally to the basketball. And if they can do that, like you said, Jesse, they got a chance to win this ball game.
Yeah.
And I think real quick, too, that the amount of transfers that Kansas added this year between A.J. Storr, Zeke Mayo, some others, I think that they might still be finding their footing together as a group. Obviously, in that UCF game, they really found a rhythm and clicked. You want to make sure that group doesn't find their cohesion against you on that end.
I'm glad they beat UCF like they did because now they're feeling cocky a little bit.
No, they're not.
Or they might be.
They're not upset after losing 2 games in a row.
Yeah. I'm not saying they're feeling cocky. I mean, they're confident heading home. They'll be in their home building after a big win, and that's, I think, a good recipe for a little bit of a letdown. And I think ASU can capitalize on that.
Speaking of ASU basketball teams capitalizing, the women's team.
Yeah.
How about that? 2-1 in Big 12 play, 3 straight wins. They're rolling right now.
They have played a lot better. And I think it all starts with Ty Skinner. She has been just... I was listening to Jeff Munn's broadcast in the car a few days ago, and he was just flabbergasted with how just much she was just having success. She's been great for them this recently. And then Nevaeh Parkinson has had a couple really good games as well here. And I think that she and Kennedy Basham are the key for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a real test. I mean, they've played a team in Texas Tech that their record was really good. I'm not sure how good they are. And Houston's probably worse than ASU. So those are their 2 wins in the Big 12. A win's a win. It's good. But tomorrow they have Iowa State, a little bit disappointing this year, but they do have one of the best players in the country in Audi Crooks.
Big 12 Player of the Week.
Yeah, Big 12 Player of the Week. Very good player. One of the best players in the country, like I said. But ASU's got a couple post players that I think might cause her some problems and could possibly be a chance for an upset tomorrow. Again, don't think it'll happen, but it would be cool if both of the teams came away with upsets tomorrow. And I think that the women's team has some matchups that favor them.
Yeah, that game is tomorrow at Mullet Arena at 6:30. You can find it on ESPN Plus as well. Both teams are playing on Saturday against Baylor, correct? The women's team against Baylor as well.
At home, at DFA, back-to-back games should be fun. I think it's always blackout fun game too.
Yeah, make sure to go check the schedule page on the Arizona State website to see that. But yeah, both. It's always fun when there's doubleheader women's game and men's game. So come out, support the Sun Devils on Saturday. Maybe both teams will be going for. Well, ASU men's team will be going for their third if they win tomorrow, and the women's team would be going for its fourth
if they win tomorrow.
That's crazy to think about because we were worried about this women's basketball team coming into Big 12 play, but so far they've met the challenge
and they're over 500.
Yeah. And real quick, we've mentioned wins over lesser teams. I think Colorado you could put in that group as well. I think it's fair to say Colorado will probably finish below ASU in the Big 12.
I mean, like they look good to start the season. They have a similar record, and obviously a 20-point win is a 20-point win. But I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado makes a run.
And so what I'm getting at is stacking wins regardless of who they're coming against is always a good thing. Just because you're starting to figure some things out and starting to build off those things too. And so I think if you're stacking wins, even if they're against some of the lesser competition in the conference, I think that stacking wins in and of itself is big.
That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find all of our social media pages at AZ Sports Devils is where you can find us. Yes, Jesse?
And we'll be also out at the big hockey game on Friday, this big hockey weekend for ASU as well.
University of North Dakota.
North Dakota, yep.
So
top 20 team, I believe.
Yep, exactly. And they just beat, who was it, Cornell? Yes,
yep.
Cornell.
Yep.
So
ASU hockey's been rolling a little bit recently.
It's good to see. We'll be out at the hockey game
Hasn't
on Friday.
Lost since November 15th.
There you go. So we'll be out at the hockey game on Friday, and then we'll be at the basketball games on Saturday as well. For Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred, I'm Jeremy Schnell. We'll talk to you soon.